All right, today we are going to break down one of the most complex puzzles in all of biology, cancer. We're going to get right into how a completely normal, healthy cell can go rogue and turn into something so incredibly dangerous. So let's just jump right in with one huge question. I want you to imagine a single cell, just one out of the trillions in your body, that all of a sudden forgets the most important rule of all, when to stop dividing. What happens next? Because that single mistake, right there, that's where this whole story begins. Because really, when you strip everything else away, that's what cancer is. It's not just one thing. It's a whole family of diseases. But they all share this one core problem. Cells just multiplying and multiplying with no off switch. Now, to really get a handle on that chaos, we first have to appreciate the incredible order of a normal cell's life. So let's take a look at the blueprint for how things are supposed to work. Let's look at the normal cell cycle. A cell's life is actually a highly structured four-step process. First up is the G1 phase. That's where it grows and gets all its tools ready. Then comes the S phase, S for synthesis, where it makes a perfect copy of its DNA. After that, in G2, it's all about quality control, double-checking everything, fixing any mistakes. And finally, you get the M phase, mitosis, the grand finale, where it splits into two perfect daughter cells. It's really a beautiful, precise dance. So how does it stay so precise? Well, the system has these absolutely critical safety features built right in. The best way to think of them is like police checkpoints on a highway. Before a cell can move on to the next phase, it has to stop and pass a full inspection. At that first big checkpoint, right before it commits to copying its entire library of DNA, the cell basically asks itself, okay, do I have everything I need? Are all the repair teams standing by just in case something goes wrong? If the answer to any of that is no, everything grinds to a halt until it's fixed. And then, after all the DNA has been copied, there's another crucial stop. And this time, the questions are even more serious. Is this copy perfect? Did we miss any mistakes? Is there any damage here at all? And only if that genetic blueprint is absolutely flawless does the cell get the green light to finally divide. So that's the orderly system that's supposed to keep us healthy. But cancer? Well, cancer is a story of sabotage. It's about how this elegant system gets hijacked at the deepest level imaginable, or genes. To really understand this, think of this cell cycle like driving a car. It's mainly controlled by two kinds of genes. First, you've got proto-oncogenes. These are like the accelerator pedal, telling the cell, go, 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 divide. Then you have tumor suppressor genes. And you guessed it, these are the brakes, telling the cell, whoa, stop. Cancer is what happens when a mutation jams that accelerator to the floor, turning it into a dangerous oncogene, and at the same time, someone cuts the brake lines. And this is where the details really matter. Oncogenes, they become overactive, and because they're dominant, you only need one bad copy of that gene to start a problem. But tumor suppressors, like the famous P53, people call it the guardian of the genome. They have to become inactive, and because they're recessive, you usually need to lose both copies before the brakes completely fail. And that right there is why some cancer predispositions can be inherited. You might be born with one faulty brake line already. And the genetic basis for this is just vast. It's estimated that a staggering 27% of our entire human genome, that's nearly a third of our genetic blueprint, is connected to cancer in some way. It just shows you how deeply these control systems are woven into our very being. So what happens when these genetic switches get flipped the wrong way? The cell doesn't just divide uncontrollably. No, it's much more than that. It starts to develop a new set of dangerous abilities. You can honestly think of them as the superpowers of a supervillain cell. These are what scientists call the hallmarks of cancer. This cell learns to ignore any signal telling it to stop. It becomes practically immortal by resisting natural cell death. It even figures out how to hide from our own immune system and how to build its own supply lines to get the fuel it needs to keep growing. Let's just focus on that first one for a second, resisting death. You see, normal cells have a self-destruct program called apoptosis. If a cell knows it's too damaged to be repaired, it basically takes one for the team and safely eliminates itself. But cancer cells, they figure out how to disable that sequence. They cut the wires to the self-destruct button, and in doing so, they achieve a really twisted kind of immortality. And all of this endless growing and dividing takes a massive amount of energy. A cancer cell turns into a metabolic monster. Compared to a healthy cell, it can burn through up to 40 times more glucose. It develops this absolutely ravenous appetite. So how does it feed that appetite? It can't just rely on the existing infrastructure. It actually forces the body to build brand new blood vessels that lead directly to the tumor. That process is called angiogenesis. It's literally creating its own personal, dedicated supply lines to fuel its expansion. But a tumor that stays in one place is one kind of problem. The real danger, the thing that makes cancer so lethal, is its ability to spread. This is the end game. This is metastasis. Metastasis is the process where these rogue cells manage to break free from the original tumor, get into the body's highways, the blood and the lymph systems, and then set up new colonies in distant organs, like the lungs or the liver or the brain. This journey is like a four-step invasion. First, the cell learns how to break the anchors holding it in place. Then, it invades a nearby vessel to get onto the highway. Next, it has to travel through the bloodstream, and it's clever. Sometimes it hides by sticking to normal cells like platelets. And finally, it exits the highway in a new place and begins the whole process again, colonizing a brand new organ. So you see, from just a single cell that forgot how to stop dividing, we get to this complex, body-wide disease. Understanding this whole intricate biological story, from the cell cycle checkpoints to the genetic switches and these scary superpowers, is the first, most critical step. Because now that we understand the enemy's blueprint, the crucial question becomes, how does that change the way we fight back?